All right, so with the end of season two, we are back to dealing with the complaints that people had in regards to House of the Dragon, which is that House of the Dragon isn't a faithful adaptation of the book Fire and Blood. And I really feel as though a lot of people don't seem to understand the writing style that George R. R. Martin uses, which is the idea that every single chapter of any Game of Thrones book is a point of view. And he makes sure that when he creates these characters, the point of view that you are receiving doesn't have excessive information. And what I mean by that is when you are reading the book, if you are dealing with Tyrion, you don't get information that only, let's say, Arya or Sansa is aware of. If you're dealing with Jon Snow, you're not getting information that somebody like Sam might be aware of. Yes, they might be within the same orbit of each other, but their perspectives are basically locked to the information that they themselves possess or they themselves have become aware of. In regards to the book Fire and Blood, and I've said this multiple times before, it is a history of the Targaryen dynasty. From Aenys the Dreamer deciding to leave Valyria and go over to Westeros, to Aegon the Conqueror beginning his conquest across the Seven Kingdoms, all the way up until that of the Mad King. The person writing all of these chapters, or should I say compiling these chapters, but specifically this section about the Dance of Dragons, is Maester Luwin. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people are upset about the fact that the Greens are not portrayed the way in which they are in the book. However, when we take a step back and we look at, let's say, Maester Lewin's character on the show, he is not aware of the fact that Aemond attempted to assassinate Aegon. All he knows is that Aegon was injured in combat and that he's trying his best to essentially save him. Laris does not share this information with him. He is going to be a character that survives the entire dance. He is going to be a character that dies of old age, returning back to the Citadel. His view on the Greens is going to be far more skewered than his view on the Blacks. And what I mean by that is he sees them as the enemy. He worked with the Greens, he worked with Otto Hightower to install these individuals into a position of power, which means that when he survives and when all the blacks are dead, no one there to refute his claims or his stance or his beliefs in any way, shape, or form, he is going to write the history in a way that favors the Greens, where they are benevolent and they were of the faith of the Seven, and how Alicent was the perfect queen for a weak and sickly king. He is going to dote and embellish upon them while at the exact same time demonizing the blacks, which is why he writes Rhaenyra as this vindictive person who became evil and cruel because she didn't get her way. The way in which he writes Daemon as this evil entity that basically flies around on Caraxes, and well, to be fair, let's be honest. Daemon Targaryen definitely is an evil entity that flies around on Caraxes and just kills people. Not for the hell of it, but he typically has a reason or a goal in mind when he goes to basically show up and kill someone. But he had a reason to embellish the stories and the legacies of his side and demonize the legacies of the other side. When you get down to the nitty gritty of Fire and Blood, a lot of the information that you receive is hyperbole. And what I mean by that is, and if you're not familiar with JJ, she's a Game of Thrones, she's the Game of Thrones TikTok queen. She's always doing conversations and engaging with her community. I would say go and check her out because she's absolutely fucking awesome. But she presented this idea that I never thought of before in regards to the book Fire and Blood. Fire and Blood is very much a history novel. If you're familiar with Roman history, there is a book known as what is it called? It's the Historia Augusta, I believe is what it's called. And the Historia Augusta at one point in time was taken as gospel for the history of the Roman Empire and the Roman emperors. It wasn't until maybe a few hundred years ago that it was realized that the Historia Augusta was basically an embellishment. It wasn't actually history, it was an opinion piece by someone pretending to be a historian. There are sequences in Fire and Blood that you can take out and call 100% fact. And what I mean by that is a battle, the amount of people who died in a battle, the people who fought in that battle, the victor of that battle, the city that was destroyed, the city that was conquered, the people that were put to the sword, the decision of the Lord to either bend the knee or strike his banners and go to the other side, the building of an army, the amount of food, the amount of horses, the amount of manpower that you put forward into something. How many trees did you chop down to build your siege engines? Those are things. How many ships were destroyed in this battle? Those are things that you can look at and say that these are fact because you can see these things being brought up in other historical documents. Maybe historical documents from the north, historical documents from a town about when their city was basically raised, how many people in the city were essentially killed, how many soldiers occupied the city, how many food and grain they needed to feed the soldiers. But when you start talking about the personality and the characters themselves, things that happen behind closed doors that this maester was not there to see and was not there to hear, that's opinion. It's no longer fact, which is one of the reasons why I 100% agree with JJ in saying that the Fire and Blood book is damn near unadaptable. And it's unadaptable because there are sequences in it that you can adapt. You can adapt battles, you can adapt deaths, you can adapt major events. However, for the personal events that are essentially happening, where the person writing it was not there, Lewin was not on Dragonstone to be privy to the conversations of Rhaenyra and Daemon, or Rhaenyra and Mazaria, or Rhaenyra and Jace. He was in King's Landing. He was not privy to conversations happening between Aegon and Aemon, or between their mothers, or between Helena and Aegon, because he was not in the room for those conversations. All he can do is write from his opinion from what he believes to have occurred. And you can't really adapt something off of somebody's opinion or off of somebody's belief. Sure, you can do a one to one, but at the exact same time, even in the book Fire and Blood, there are contradictions for how the people see Rhaenyra, how the Greens see Rhaenyra, how Rhaenyra actually is, and how she was actually ruling and attempting to help the people, and what was going on behind the scenes essentially that conflicts with how she is portrayed when Lewin is talking about her directly. But that's just basically what I want to talk about. I want to talk about just how literally Fire and Blood seems to have driven people absolutely insane in regards to them thinking that this was going to be a one-to-one copy pasta of book straight onto the screen, even though we've received other major source materials, other major books essentially, that have been turned into movies and TV shows that weren't exactly one for one but were beloved. Lord of the Rings is one, the Harry Potter series is one, Star Wars, even though there's an argument between whether or not the Star Wars books are canon, because the books tend to usually dive into the thoughts of characters, and you can't really hear the thoughts of characters in the movie itself. So there's an argument about whether or not the novellas that essentially come out in regards to Star Wars can be considered canon, even though they are released literally the exact same day that the movie drops. But take a chill. This is just an adaptation. Adaptations are okay, they happen every single day. The closer an adaptation is to the source material, the better it typically is, and I don't really see House of the Dragon having strayed completely off the reservation. It's still orbiting the book. It's pulling things, serious events from the book and applying them, but the journey that the characters take in order to reach that serious event is completely up to the directors themselves. All we care about is whether or not the story that's being told is fantastic. As long as it remains fantastic and it has really, really strong writing behind it, that's good. Nobody can walk into House of the Dragon season 2 and say that the acting and the writing wasn't absolutely top tier this season, even if we had a lackluster end. But yeah, that's it. See ya.